And welcome back to part 2 of chapter 3 of my Thracia 776 play. While brigands are spawning near the bottom of the map, going towards the homes, up here eventually sword armors will start spawning, starting in the location where Leafus is, and then eventually both there and in the space opposite, right by the door on the left. Also, saying Leafus for a bit, I feel like I should talk a bit about the naming in this game. This translation patch was made way before Awakening was released, and the official translations for much of the names of the characters in this game and Genealogy of the Holy War were known. In case you're wondering, I will be going by the translations that are in-game, both because they're easier for my brain to process, and because Sed is an absolutely stupid name for SETI, and I will never call him that. Seriously, Nintendo. It doesn't work. But even then, this game's translation patch has a lot of names that are different from, say, the ones that are commonly used on Serenus Forest or the Fire Emblem Wikia before the official ones from Awakening were put in. For example, Leafus is Reefus, although that may just be a translation thing from the pronunciation of L's and R's in Japanese. Havan is Halvan, and the bad guy Rydrick is Lydrick, or Ladrick. I'm not quite sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. E's and I's and D's next to each other make my brain hurt. And a few names are spelled differently but retain their original pronunciation. For example, Safety here is spelled with an F, but in other sources it's with a PH. You know, stuff like that. Anyway, there's another game mechanic that was, again, introduced in this game that I was gonna save until the next chapter to talk about as its effects become more noticeable, but I figured I'd talk about it now because like I said in the last part, I'm kind of running out of relevant and interesting stuff to talk about, so here goes. Let's talk about supports. And no, sorry to break your heart, but I'm not talking about the actual text supports that were introduced in Sealed Sword. This type of support is a phenomenon that happens when one unit is within 3 spaces of another. There's a huge list that includes who supports who. If a unit supports another unit, when they're 3 spaces in, the unit that is supported receives a 10% boost to their critical hit chance, critical evade chance, avoid, and evade chance. Supports are not 2 ways, unless they are explicitly written as such. For example, Leaf provides a support to Finn, so when Finn is within 3 spaces of Leaf, Finn receives a 10% boost to the things I mentioned, but Leaf doesn't get that, although there are a few characters that do directly support one another. The standard bonus is 10%, but there are a few support pairs in this game that provide a 20% boost, and these are reserved to a few couples that are married or in a relationship or are blood relatives. All in all, if you know how to take advantage of the right support pairs, they can be extremely useful, especially in the next chapter, but I'll get into how that is when I get to that part. I have Safety here go to rescue one of the children to take him to the home, and there's a phenomenon with holding units that I don't quite understand. I think it might have something to do with a build difference, but sometimes when you're holding units, your movement rate gets halved for whatever reason. And to be honest, I don't really know what causes it. I fiddle around with Finn's items there so much because I'm used to other Fire Emblem games where selecting a weapon to attack a unit with automatically places it at the top of the inventory, and that isn't the case in this game. You have to actually select an item from the item menu to put it at the top of your inventory, unless you select that item to attack and actually attack the enemy with it. Oh, what you gonna do? Oh, what you gonna do? Yeah, Marty's gonna die when they come for you, wanting stats and weapons and things like use. Oh, what you gonna do when they come for you? Oh ho ho, Marty, Marty, Marty. If you played Spec Ops The Line, you know what that was referencing. And if you have played that game, good on you. If you haven't, stop watching this video and go play it. Really. Don't look up anything else about it. Just go play it. And maybe if you know what stuff happens in that game, it's still worth playing, I think. You should. If you noticed, I'm having Dagda kind of just sit where Leafus was earlier when I was showing where the sword armors would eventually start spawning. And I don't know if they're supposed to start spawning yet. I know there's like a list on Serenus Forest of when reinforcements are supposed to appear, but I don't know that stuff off my heart. I'm having them sit there because if you have a unit sit where reinforcements are supposed to appear, they don't show up when they're supposed to. In fact, this is an extremely useful trick you can do in a later chapter where there are tons of reinforcements, but they only show up if a boss is around, and that boss is a reinforcement. So you can half the frustration of a chapter just by sending one unit up a little bit to basically kind of break the script of the game. And I know it's maybe kind of cheating, but I do it because that chapter is a pain regardless. You'll see why when I get to it. And the second I move Dagda off that spot, sword armors start showing up, so I guess I was right in keeping them there. Well, at least it's more experience for my guys. If this second bandit had decided to attack Marty, he probably would have died, and honestly, I wouldn't have blinked. I really don't care about Marty, but he lived, so I figured I would be merciful and let him heal himself before he continues to do nothing for the rest of this chapter. And here becomes me being an idiot for maybe not looking up which homes are supposed to have the children go to. And, oh man, the only one I can really remember is that the top right one is where Corporal is supposed to go. Man, I really have to memorize this stuff in advance. I could save myself so much time. So, a whole bunch of this next part is me just trying to get these children down to their homes. So, you guessed it, more sped up portions. I'll play more Azure Striker Gunvolt music for you, and I'll see you back in a bit. Alright, so getting Yuvel to this home here allows me to recruit a unit in the next chapter, which is always a great thing. Dashin. Gotta remember that. And in this home, by returning Lucia to, I guess is her grandmother, we get the second Crusader scroll, the Baldo scroll. This scroll provides a 5% increase in HP growth, strength growth, skill growth, speed growth, luck growth, and defense growth. And unlike the Hazel scroll, it doesn't have any negatives to balance out the fact that it's still giving you a 30% overall increase to growth rate. It's overall not as useful as the more impactful scrolls because its effects are pretty low with only 5%, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Man, Wrath in Fire Emblem 5 is just absolutely ridiculous. I can see why they never brought this form of it back, but I still would like to, if only to see more crazy stuff like this happens. And if you think this is nuts, you should wait until the next chapter. Woohoo, you're in for a treat. Also, funny bit about the axe fighter crits with their axes, they kind of hold it out to their side with the blade portion facing behind them, and then they kind of just zoom at the enemy. So I'm not quite sure, is it too fast that we can't see it? Or are they actually hitting the enemy with the other side of their axe? I mean, this isn't a problem for axes like the Brave Axe, which are shown to be double-edged, but that's kind of strange, ain't it? Anyway, by returning Romeo to what I assume to be his grandmother, we get the Shield Ring, which is another stat-boosting item like the HP Ring and the Speed Ring. This one provides a 3-point boost to a user's defense. Overall pretty great. I don't immediately give it to Leaf as I'm checking his stats here, and he's actually overall pretty ballin'. I'll probably save it for someone else down the line. Finn notices Seifi struggling to carry a child back to his home, so he's racing up to give her a hand. By the way, the unit she's holding is Corporal, who is actually a unit you can recruit in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. If you remember from that game, Corporal is one of the two children of Sylvia, and is stated to have been adopted by General Hannibal of Thracia. Rescuing him is very, very important. If you fail at rescuing all of the children in this, at least try to rescue him. Seriously, the reward you get for rescuing him outdoes everything else from this chapter. You don't get it right away, but let's just say you're going to have a very, very, very hard time down the road with certain objectives if you don't get the item that rescuing Corporal gives you. Anyway, I mentioned that there are no more reinforcements in this chapter, and the only things I'm going to be doing is moving some items around, taking Corporal back to that home, and defeating the boss. So, welcome back to another sped up segment. You know how this works by now, I think. it looks like with all the rapid parts I've done, this next part may only be about 25 minutes. Guess I won't split it up into just 3 parts. I'll just be doing 2. Seriously, I cut the total length of this recording from an hour and 8 minutes down to 45 minutes. Anyway, I'm doing massive amounts of trading between Leaf and Leafus right now because, well, I'll spoil it a bit. Those two get isolated in the next chapter. None of the other people you have right now are with you, and you don't get them back for quite a while. It's quite a jarring shift in this game, and it's done really well within the context. In fact, this next part of the game is often called by many to be the highlight of this game, and I can see why. Other people just dump all their stuff into the supply. Like Marty. Hey, at least he was good as a pack mule. Anyway, the really important items that you want to make sure Leaf and Leafus are holding by the end of this chapter are the Fire Sword, Hammer, Brave Axe, Armor Slayer, Lockpick, and Chest Key. Those will be very useful for the next few chapters, so make sure you have them. Now then, just as a taste of what this game is kind of bringing you to expect, we're only on the 3rd, technically 4th chapter of the game, and we're already seeing promoted enemies for bosses. Ugh. Havan got his axe rank up to C, so I'm temporarily having him hold the hammer in an effort to beat the boss with. It's gonna have a bit of low accuracy because, remember, throne bonuses in this game are ridiculous, but I'll have the rest of the guys chipping in to help him out. I think my plan here was to have Dagda hold a bow and try to do some damage to the boss, but I forgot to actually equip him with a bow. Again, it's because I had him try to attack him with it, but then he cancelled, and I keep forgetting that doesn't actually make you equip it or put it at the top of your inventory. You actually have to select it. Muscle memory can be such a bitch sometimes. Until I get a magic user, this is pretty much my easiest way of weakening enemies on thrones, is to use Leaf's light sword or the fire sword that Avil had in order to damage enemies. I mean, you really do need magic to take out some of the later bosses because trying to use physical weapons on them that aren't super effective, like an armor slayer or a horse slayer or a hammer, is just a waste of your time. Man, those throne bonuses. I mean, why does sitting on a throne increase your evade so much? I mean, I can maybe understand the defense, but how does it work like that? Oh, I can understand forests and shrubbery and stuff giving you an evade bonus, but just not a throne. There is a chapter about midway through the game, and a couple in between, but this one in particular, where you have to defend a throne from an enemy force while you send your troops over to reinforce it. And it just shows you how ridiculous thrones can get. You can just stick one unit on that throne, and you can just have them sit there, and enemies won't be able to do anything about them, because throne bonuses in this game just make anyone godly. I mean, 10 extra defense, 30 extra evade? That's just ridiculous. I know I'm using a lot of Leaf's light sword, but eventually he's going to hit a point where he becomes a liability in combat. And once I get an item called the King Sword, I'm basically just going to have him hold that and stand in the middle of a group of units. The King Sword gives the user Charisma, which gives a bonus to hit and evade to all your units in its range, and
Well, that's something Leaf can do. He can hold an item that helps other units out. Especially once he reaches his level cap, because then there really is no other point for him to enter combat. Anywho, the gameplay portion of this chapter is winding up just as I trade a couple items that I had mixed around beforehand. Just checking to make sure everyone has their items that they need, and I'll end the chapter. And I will see you guys sometime later with chapter 4. There's a video I'm working on that I'd like to put in between that's not part of this, which I referenced earlier in another video. So I'll see you guys then, and have a nice day. Don't forget to, if you feel like it, rate, comment, and subscribe. See ya. Phew, we somehow managed to capture the fort. Well, boy, I would like to say good job, but it looks like your luck has run out. Put down your weapons if you want this girl to live. Nana! Rydrick, you? Leaf, don't worry about me, just run. Damn. Okay, I'll drop my weapons, so don't hurt her. It's nice to see obedience. Okay, capture Prince Leaf. Don't forget his friends either. What? Lord Leaf has been captured? Okay, then I will go with him. I want you people to escape for now and rescue the prince later. Understood? Okay, we'll have to retreat for now. Lord Leaf, I promise I will go rescue you. Damn, Leaf. We'll go rescue you. You better not die until then. Damn, is this it? Dear God, please protect the prince. What? The prince was captured? Damn, guys, let's pull back to Purple Dragon Mountain. Guess we'll have to gather all the boys and attack Manster by force.